one of the deals that Jarrett was involved in, not with Mario Galento, something about TV stations. A lot of things in Tennessee happen at TV stations. That's where a lot of the guys got together back in the days when the locker rooms were separate. You had baby faces and heels that never actually saw each other in the arenas except for in the ring. So they got no private time. There was a deal in Louisville, Kentucky in, I believe it was, it was 1973. I think it was summertime. And one of the preliminary matches was Tojo Yamamoto versus Dandy Jack Donovan. And Dandy Jack Donovan had been a journeyman. He was featured in different places, but not like a huge main event star. But it was just a preliminary match. And of course, Tojo was figured into the Tennessee territory, not only as he started out in the 60s as a heel and then became a babyface, teamed up with Jarrett, one of the icons of Tennessee wrestling in the 60s and 70s, Tojo Yamamoto and Jackie Fargo and, guys like that. So Tojo was going over, and nobody's around these days that was actually there then, so nobody really knows what happened. But the story was that somewhere or another, they got sideways in the ring, and after Tojo had won the match, apparently Jack Donovan either allegedly attacked him, tried to go for his eyes, whatever. And there was a bit of a skirmish and they got separated and it stewed overnight. And on Wednesdays, the guys in those days went to the TV station in Nashville to do promos for all the towns. And that was really one of the only times that the guys on the Memphis end, the Memphis circuit, were together with the guys from the Birmingham end, the circuit that Nick still controlled, Nashville, Chattanooga, Birmingham, even though Jarrett had opened up Memphis and Louisville and Evansville, etc. There was two crews. And Lynn Rossi was the booker for Nick. He had been the All-American babyface hero for Nick Goulas going back to the late 50s, early 60s, and there was heat between him and Fargo because they were completely opposite individuals, but Fargo was the main event attraction that Rossi was at some points in some of the towns, but couldn't really be in Memphis or overall. So Jarrett, Tojo, and Fargo, they get together at the TV station and they're waiting for Jack Donovan because whatever the fuck he'd done to Tojo had created an impression that they wanted to get even for.
For the record, if I could jump in for a second,
yeah.
Jack Donovan's side of the story, because remember, a lot of this years later played out in Scott Teal's Whatever Happened To.
Yes.
He said Tojo was being especially stiff with him and uncooperative in the match. It wasn't like, okay, I've had enough, I'm going for your eye. There were several things that led to that moment. It wasn't just, I'm going to be a bully after this match or anything.
Well, and like I said, nobody is still around that knows exactly what started it or what happened, and there were two sides to it. But unfortunately, in this one, Jack Donovan was alone in his thinking, and Lynn Rossi tried to get to him to warn him, apparently, but it was too late because Tojo and Jarrett and Fargo got him in one of the bathrooms. All the good shit happened in the TV station in the bathrooms. And Tojo had his wooden shoes. And I know, again, people now are going to, what the fuck, wooden shoes? The Japanese wrestler, the stereotypical wooden shoes, and the kimono that he would wear to the ring. As a heel, he'd use the wooden shoes to fuck the babyface. As a babyface, he would use the wooden shoes to get back at the heels, in a big schmoz, but he could also use those wooden shoes on marks because they were giant blocks of wood. And they used the wooden shoes on Dandy Jack Donovan and apparently beat him to the almost the point where he didn't make it.
Didn't they rip his nose off or almost rip his nose off with the wooden shoe?
It was still attached, but not all the way. So anyway, at that point, then Lynn Ross, everybody else tried to get him out of there because now they've got blood all over the fucking walls of the TV station bathroom there that they're in. And that was Jack Donovan's notice from the territory. He got the fuck out of there. And the ill will perpetuated, as you mentioned, and later, in 20 years later, he was still doing interviews going, I don't know what the fuck was going on. But that's, and again, somebody said when they saw the preview of Jerry Jarrett, maybe or maybe not pulling Mario Galento's eyeball out. Oh, bullshit. The cops would have been called. Everybody would have gone to jail. No. I mentioned in the interview, Mario Galento calling the cops on Jackie Fargo. That was a very unique occurrence, just because most of the time the guys didn't want the cops involved, because then it goes to the papers. Then there's some talk about wrestling being a work or not, and it opens up a whole can of peas. So,
which Galento didn't care about because he already went on the radio.
Yeah, Galento was already on the outs, wasn't being booked, had felt like he had been, blackballed or whatever. So he'd already been trying to stir things up, going on the radio, saying that business was a work and et cetera, et cetera. So that wasn't something that was going to motivate him. But in most cases, guys settled it themselves one way or the other, and the losing side left the territory. And that's what happened there. And Jack Donovan never worked the Tennessee territory again. But there's all kinds of interesting stories like that. Go ahead.
I'm not sure how much he worked anywhere ever again after that.
It was, I think he might have gone, was it right? Was he coming from a nice run in the Knoxville territory in the middle of 73, or was he about to go there?
I want to say he was about to go somewhere, so it may be that. Because I don't remember where it was, but I remember reading the interview. He was getting ready to go somewhere when all this happened. And then he had to let Nick know, because Nick didn't even know all this happened.
And I think it was that he went to Knoxville, had a nice run, and then maybe down to McGurk or something. And by the mid-70s, he was pretty much done. His wife was a wrestler also, Vern Bottoms, which I always thought was a intriguing name for a girl wrestler.
If Vern Gagne went into porn.
Vern Bottoms.
I'm Vern Bottoms here with Wally Carbo.